The other part that this client wanted to work on was optimizing his schedule, optimizing his workflow. He described he didn't know that he had an opportunity to grow this area. He just kind of had a sense of it. Basically, he talked about how the way he would operate would be he would wake up, and mind you, this is a guy that is highly successful, doesn't need money, kind of hit financial freedom, but a guy that still wants to kind of get to the next level. So his way of operating was to like have a to-do list. He would separate his tasks into two buckets. One bucket would be his to-do lists, like things that come to mind that need to get done. And then his other kind of things that he needed to do were projects. So in his mind, one had more priority than the other, and one was like the immediate things that he had to take care of. Nothing wrong with it. It's actually a very good system. Most people don't even have a system. So the fact that he has a system just kind of tells you how high level he is. And so he just asked about like, oh, I should probably plan a little bit more. And so I asked him like, yeah, what do you mean by that? I could plan a little bit more. He's like, well, whenever I do work, sometimes I get distracted. Like if someone wants to have a call, I'll just jump on the call. If a phone call rings or an email has my attention, I'll jump to that. I said, perfect. It's a great opportunity because clearly you're identifying a problem within yourself or something that you want to optimize. And then also you're bringing it up that you have concern about how you're getting distracted. And so what I gave him that day, what I gifted him, followed Steve Kotler's work on flow state optimization. So basically, if you don't know what flow state optimization is, it's basically it's like the runner's high, aka the runner's high. So it's basically a state in which when you do work or when you're operating, it doesn't take you any energy. You don't have to spend any energy. You're only spending physical energy, but you don't feel like you're spending any emotional or mental energy. Okay. The runner's high is described by, after you exercise for a certain amount of time, eventually it doesn't hurt anymore. All of a sudden running becomes easy. And so we know that when you get distracted, when you jump from one task to another, and this is obvious stuff, right? When you jump from one task to another, you're not in your optimal state. Steve Kotler would define it as you're going in and out of flow state. You're not using the most efficient energy possible, okay? And we can talk hours and hours and hours about this one topic. And so I kind of didn't know where to start with him because it's a very broad topic. But the advice that I gave started out with the concept of activation energy. So basically, every time you make a decision, every time you have a negative experience, every time you go through something that you didn't expect and reality was a little bit more difficult, causing a little bit more suffering, that takes away from your overall energy. Every decision you make spends energy, and everything that you need to do requires a certain amount of activation energy. You science geeks, this comes like easily to you because you know the science definition of activation energy. So basically, activation energy is defined by the amount of energy required, or the amount of energy that it takes to start a reaction, to begin a process. So let's just use exercise as an example. You wake up in the morning, let's say it's 4 a.m. in the morning, you're exhausted. You don't feel like going to do an exercise. You could say that exercising at that time requires a lot of activation energy, requires a lot out of you in order to like take that step. In order to lower the activation energy, you could take your phone, put an alarm on it, put it away from you so that you have to physically get up and turn off the phone alarm. And right after you turn off the phone alarm, you have your shoes right in front of you. You're wearing your clothes that you're going to exercise with. The day before, you wrote down the exact exercise that you're going to do. Coffee has already been brewed, and you're out the door, right? You stacked up a bunch of you stacked up a bunch of actions that created a situation where the activation used to be really high, but you lowered it to the point where your willpower was able to overcome the required activation energy. Okay. And this concept, you can use this concept everywhere throughout your day to day, from doing difficult tasks to, uh, taking out the trash, whatever. So in his example, lowering the activation energy, what we chose to the path that we chose to go down, because he talked about planning, he talked about wanting to optimize planning, was the concept of trying to live in the future, right? So the recommendation was the day before, you're going to write down your to-do list, right? You're going to try to plan out what you're going to do and when. We didn't really get into the when with him because I didn't want to give him too much stuff. But you're going to have an idea of what you're going to do the next day. You'll write it down. And right before you sleep, you're going to look at your list and you're just going to go through each thing. And you're going to kind of play out the scenario in your mind. It's a combination of visualization plus, optimizing flow state by, according to Steve Kohler. So by living in the future and going through your to-do list, you've already experienced that pain in each of those decisions. And by having already experienced that thing, it's much easier to do. Essentially, you've lowered the activation energy of all of your tasks for that day if you review them the day before. That way, when you show up and do it, it doesn't require as much energy when you're doing the task and when you're task switching as well, allowing you to complete more of your to-do list, because most of the time we don't even finish our to-do list, but also giving you energy by the end of the whole thing. You're spending your energy more efficiently by stacking it the day before, okay? And there's levels to this. This is kind of like level 1. If you want to go level 2, you imagine the experience of what it would feel like after you finish the task. If you want to go level 3, you're going to have an ideal schedule and you're going to have the time blocks of when you're going to finish each of those things. Like there's levels to these, but what we discussed with him was just looking at it the night before and trying to live it out in order to lower your activation energy to make each task a little bit easier. Hopefully that was helpful for you today. It goes pretty deep and you can look it up, but you can apply this to anything in your life that's hard to do. It allows you to be more efficient with your spend, your energy spend, which allows you to have more energy throughout your day. So other than that, have a nice night. These are my reflections for the day, and take care. Bye-bye.